You can hear all well from my side.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Be Transparent. Today we have Myra with us. Let me just tell you a little bit about Myra and then she can carry on from there. Well, Myra has been teaching and practicing from 2018, if I'm not wrong. And she has been into scuba diving before she got into yoga, which is super interesting when I got to know about that. And also, not just this, she's also been a Kathak practitioner, dancer. So yeah, there's so much that I'm interested to know about you, Myra, and I want to just leave it to you a little bit if you would like to add to what I just said. So yeah, let me know.
No, I think everything you said was great. And long story short, from where I'm from, I'm born and brought up in Gurgaon. Did schooling and college there. So while I was in school, my mom's a Kathak dancer, so that was my first introduction to any kind of movement, any kind of rhythm. And I think I was her first student. I don't know if I
Wow,
willingly joined Kathak or I was her guinea pig to see if she was a good teacher, but it was
I
easy.
see.
So, but then I kind of grew up to enjoying the dance form a lot, to performing with her as a part of her repertory as well, towards the last few years of school and my initial few years of college. And I had ups and downs with Kathak. It's a classical dance form. It holds a heavy tradition and its roots say a lot. So like anything which holds all of that weightage, it's passed on to you with a lot of responsibility and slowly. And when you're younger, it's a bit boring because you have to practice and to keep doing the as. But I eventually did grow up to really enjoy it and appreciate it. When I was in
Wow.
college is when I went for a holiday to the Andamans. Not knowing much about the sea, all I knew about the sea being from Delhi was the beaches in in Bombay, which you don't step into, and Goa somewhat. I knew how to swim, but yeah, I'd never really been in the ocean or known anything about it. So that was my first introduction to the ocean. And I went for a holiday for 2 weeks. I was still in college in my last semester. I was petrified in the beginning, and all kinds of, I was like, this is not what's,
Swimming
swimming in a pool feels
is
like at all.
like,
I was like, I thought I knew how to swim. I thought I liked the water, but clearly I was like, I hate this. Get me out of here. But
ocean
my
had some different
instructor,
plans for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But my instructor was, thankfully, he was amazing and he did not give up at all. But he did like play games with me. He's like, okay, if you don't want to do it, cool, go home. Fine, you'll just be here and look at the ocean. And I was like, no,
That
I have to
worked.
do it. And
That
it
worked
worked.
pretty
I was
well.
like, there's no way I'm going home telling people that I nothing, I didn't do anything and I came back. But yeah, and I kind of got over it. And the minute I was over the discomfort that I was feeling of new equipment and things like that, and actually noticed everything around me, I was like, wow, what is this universe that I'm in? What is this world that I'm in? And so that was scuba diving, only to love it so much that I was like, okay, this is where I want to live, this is what I want to do. And finished my last semester of college and went back and, pursued the levels after that. And eventually became an instructor and then worked for a few seasons in the Andamans. And it was in the I would say last or second last season in the Andamans that I thought I wanted to again bring a different kind of move because I lost touch with dance by then, as in I wasn't dancing. Um, and I said I want to bring some kind of movement back into my life. I want to start my day with something,
Mhm.
and there's no gyms, there's nothing around in the Andaman. So at that time we happened to have a couple that came, and I was just talking about yoga, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a yoga practitioner." And turned out much later, I found out that she's a very, very
Ah,
senior practitioner, and she's actually a Sharad Ji student.
oh,
But
lovely.
she recommended Bharat sir to me and said, go to Bharat Shetty in Mysore, and he's phenomenal. And I didn't even bother looking anywhere else. I just went straight to him. So that was my introduction to yoga with Bharat sir. And then the lockdown happened, and diving had to kind of take a little bit of a backseat. And I didn't go to learn yoga to become a teacher at all. it kind of just I didn't even go to do my TTC. I just went to learn, so I could take something back to the Andamans, which I could wake up and do. And it took its path. I took my own time. I took a fair amount of time to actually get comfortable with the idea that I can teach or I should teach. And I still am sometimes not. I wouldn't say I'm confused about. Absolutely love teaching, but there are times I feel overwhelmed and I feel like, am I really equipped to teach? And it's
Okay.
taken me a while to be able to even say it out loud, because it's been on my mind, and maybe sometimes we're very good at underplaying ourselves and thinking that we don't know enough. But I know a fair amount, but I also still really feel overwhelmed by the entire practice, and do feel that, you know, how long is it going to take for me to feel comfortable with how much I know? So, but I think that's an ongoing,
I think
yeah,
as teachers, we go down that spiral quite often. I'm not sure about others, but I do feel quite related to what you just said. I remember when I went for my teacher training course for the first time, the mere reason was I just wanted knowledge. I just wanted to gain as much as I can. I remember telling my teacher that it's okay if you don't give me
yeah,
certificate. Could
yeah,
you just
yeah,
could you just
yeah,
allow me sitting few more lectures? I want to listen what's
yeah,
happening in that one,
exactly,
what's happening in the other
exactly.
one. The curiosity that was in there at that time was so intense and so pure. And yeah, it is lovely that how you met a couple at Andamans and it turns out to be a
I
small
don't know,
world. We
man. I
practicing. Have you practiced with
I also
Sharadji as well?
really, no, I actually haven't, and which is something that I wanted to point out. I now look back and I really appreciated the fact that her first recommendation was not her own teacher, and there was, another teacher who she had never, she actually knew Bharat sir separately and recommended him, and which is nice, which is how it should be, that,
Yeah, I mean,
you should never hold back when it comes to recommending somebody else who also has incredible skills and
I
knowledge.
think I am also a student of Sharadji. So on that behalf, I would like to say, I don't know for others, but I also recommend other teachers. The mere reason is practicing with Sharadji happens after a point of time because he has a certain way for it. He's not going to provide you with certificates. He's not going to provide you with any nonsense. All he needs is pure practice. And if you're just entering into the world of yoga, if you're just trying to step foot into the world which is so alien to you right now, entering into a very hardcore place would make you feel very uh, out of the place.
Intimidated.
It will not
Yeah.
welcome you. It will not welcome you the way any other course will welcome you. So I think that being a suggestion was a very thoughtful suggestion in your case
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it could be the other way around also, depending on a person to person. But I appreciate that the consideration that was given before giving a suggestion
Yeah,
in that
I
particular
have
context.
practiced and learned from even some of Sharaji's direct students, which has been amazing. Some really, really good teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but never in his shala under him at all. No.
Okay. This interests me that besides these practices, are you also interested in any other current practices that you're doing besides yoga? Are you trying to
Well,
involve yourself in something else besides yoga?
well, in the last year, for the last few years, I really had been missing diving a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so towards the end of the season which was 2019, which was my last season in the Andamans, the lockdown hadn't happened yet, but I was already contemplating quitting the company that I was working at, and it had nothing to do with the company or with the diving. There's times that the administration in the Andamans is so backward and so difficult to deal with and it comes from just ignorance and not enough education about the activity itself. So they would keep, they make it very hard to give you permissions to dive and things like that. So it it was that last season was just not ideal because it was very going to the government offices again and again, begging them ki, please take kar do and this and that. And it was just a loop. And I was like, this is not why I'm here. And it's going to make me less and less interested in diving itself because I'm not diving. And the off season happened, and I was in Mysore and I was practicing, and it seemed like a good time that I want to just spend some time in Mysore itself. So that's when I stopped diving. But in from 2022, I would say 21, 22 is when I again really started. I was like, I want to go back to the ocean. I really do. And last year, in fact, I managed to bring diving back into my life, which was lovely. And it had actually, so there was one season where yoga and diving overlapped, where I went back to the Andamans, but with a little bit of knowledge that Bharat sir had shared with me. And I was actually taken aback by the similarities that I felt in yoga and in scuba diving. And maybe I'm making it up, maybe it doesn't exist, but they're my personal experiences that it was the breath played a very, very big role, especially
Beautiful.
after you become efficient with diving, you can really maneuver yourself in the water as you wish to,
The
and it
awareness
is all
levels.
dependent on
Yeah.
your breath. And there's this topic in diving called buoyancy, where you don't want to, if you're negatively buoyant, you're constantly sinking down. If you're positively buoyant, you're constantly like rising up. But if you're neutrally buoyant, then you're neither rising nor are you sinking.
Floating.
And your
Okay.
neutral buoyancy is what you want to establish as a diver. And that feeling of being suspended in the ocean when you're neither like breaking the reef or, churning up sand, nor are you hitting the surface, but you're just there and it's just based on your breath
Wow.
is like a floatiness that you feel even when you're doing yoga, where you're in the posture and at one point that posture felt really difficult and like torture and you're like, I will never do this. And then a little while later, you're in the posture and you're like, wow, I'm here. I'm not thinking about my body in it, but I can actually feel my breath moving in different parts of my body. So that feeling, which was induced by breath, is something that I found in both, and it stands out to me. And I used to think, I was like, if I could combine these two and share this with people, and that's what I did last year for the first time, and I'm going to do it again in February. So I took a group of people back to the Andamans, to Chiria Tapu, which is where the dive center I worked with was. And we did a 1 week long retreat where we would start and end the day with yoga and then spend the rest
Wow.
of the day. And all of them became open water divers. And it was just, so that's why I'm slowly getting more and more diving back into my life. Do I want to go back and live on the islands? Not at the moment, but I
Hmm.
would want to keep visiting different parts,
I
different
see.
oceans, different islands whenever I can. So that is definitely one practice or one other thing that I'm getting back into my life. The other thing I started finding a lot of importance in, I'm not getting it back enough into my life, is I've been paying quite a bit of attention to requirements for women in their day-to-day life. And I think um, some kind of strength training, and I fought it for very long because a lot of people who practice yoga, I'm not speaking on everybody's behalf, this is my experience, say that if you do yoga, you don't need to do anything else. And I felt that at one point. But I also feel that if something gives you joy, then do it. If it makes you
Yeah.
happy to lift weight, then lift weight. You're not
Correct.
beneath someone if you decide to go to the gym and do yoga in the morning. And I'm also seeing the importance of it because of just the health of a female body, of your bones and your muscles, more than that, your bones. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I'm understanding that from personal experience. So that, and whenever I go home, there's a little bit of dance that keeps coming back, and all of these things sometimes break away from yoga asana practice, and it opens your mind up to something else. It also opens up your space up to different people, which is so important. So yeah,
Amazing.
there's little bits of everything, and I'm always want to learn more, but my parents are just like, तुम कितना सीखोगी, कहाँ कहाँ जाओगी? But
Curious
yeah,
souls. Oh my God.
yeah,
I think I've got that line a lot. कितना क्या क्या
yeah,
करोगी? कितना कितना
yeah.
सीखोगे?
Seriously,
I can
I
relate
wish
to
we
it.
had
But
more time.
I am I was imagining myself in ocean when you were talking about the overlap that you had. I am not a swimmer. I cannot swim, but I remember the first time I cracked that I can snorkel, but I cannot swim. It was like interesting fact for me
Yeah.
to hear, and yeah, it's beautiful how ocean and water makes you feel and makes it such a different experience for you. So interesting. I am, excuse me. In Feb, I did see your poster regarding the retreat, and it looked pretty interesting. And I'm happy that someone's actually doing it because I have seen a few people, but they're all foreigners who are hosting all such kinds of stuff. So I'm happy that I have a familiar face that is going to do something like this.
Yeah.
But also, I also relate to. I remember, okay, before I say the next thing, I remember calling Myra before doing this episode with everyone online, and we were on call, and I just felt like if we could have just recorded the call that we did. Our call was such a fun and
It
such
was, it actually was.
transparent, and we just happened to speak for the very first time, and we were speaking for about an hour or so, and then we realized, oh, we're actually doing a podcast right here on the call. And I don't know if we
Exactly.
could bring that same energy back, but I also relate to the fact where people are trying to compare gym and yoga and everything. And my only way to answer that is I always prefer that if you're dancing, if you're doing any other passionate practice that gives you good feeling, makes you feel nice, why do you have to compare and have to choose between both of them? You can
Yeah.
parallelly work through it and you can actually find your way across it if you're actually interested in doing both of them. And I was also, especially when I was practicing hardcore Ashtanga, I think my strength practice was on because it's so much, I think it's so much body weight practice that you're doing. It's so much demand. But due to some injuries, when my that practice went down, I did switch to a little more besides yoga. And I don't mind saying out loud that, yeah, I do things beyond yoga, besides yoga, because that is what makes me feel good, you know? It is how it is. You shouldn't be put in a spot where you have to choose. I think I just smelled something
Have
which
a
is
sip of
gone in my throat once.
water.
Yep. Yes. So yeah, this is interesting, and I just feel there's no reason to have a fuss about this. But when now I'm actually studying therapy, yoga therapy in particular. So there also they teach you that yoga can only help you to a certain place. You are the one who's actually going to help yourself. And if you are mentally happy, if you are mentally peaceful, do whatever that actually helps you do that. So
Yeah.
that is all about it. What I personally believe that people find it so difficult to accept. Do what makes you feel good, and do what is something that you find sense to, rather than chasing something that you cannot relate to at this current point.
Correct. Only because someone on the outside has told you this is the thing to do, you kind of are like, oh, this worked for this person. Maybe I should do it. It'll work for me. And two things to add to what you said is one, if you are really avoiding you're really moving away from something that you want to do, your mind is going to play with you more and more, more and more, and you're really going to crave it constantly, like food, that's something. And I can say that out of experience. There were times that I've gone through all kinds of diets, all kinds. Um, and a lot of it was because I would hear from around me, oh, this is good, this diet is better, this is better, this is better. And a lot of it was not. Some of it was organic shifts, but some
Mhm.
of it was not. Some of it was because, people would say that this is better for you. And I would be like, yeah, this is better for me. But I know I was not convinced. So there were times and then you catch yourself constantly thinking about it, wanting it, but you kind of just, you're like, no, but I have left this. So I can't go back to this. It's the same thing when when you are like, no, but if I'm running, I'll get really tight hamstrings and then I won't be able to do Uttanasana, Paschimottanasana. So running is like not for me. But you're constantly thinking about running because you enjoy running outside. So run, so that is really, I think, why not do both if, both of you
Correct.
are giving you
Yeah.
joy.
I think something that actually helped me in this context was jnana, like the knowledge.
Yeah.
Especially we being yoga students, we're always put under this box there. You're in a path of being a teacher, so these are the norms. This is what you're supposed to be like. This is the set outline. You're not supposed to be doing this. This is out of the decorum, XYZ. But what I felt that gave me a little sense to the whole context was the more knowledge. Let me take you through a particular context. In particular, let's talk about food. For me, when I had been a big sweet tooth, like chocolates where I will not share, like a big pieces of big packets of chocolates where I would not be open to sharing a single bite. Like I was that big of a sweet tooth,
Yeah.
and so was my brother. And I remember lockdown, we were studying so much, and my brother is like a research geek. Like he wants to research everything. So we together got very inquisitive and we started searching about these food products and the ingredient list. The more we started studying about it, the more knowledge came into us. And the more I stopped resisting myself from eating something and feeling bad after eating that, I realized that our body has a mechanism to it.
Yeah.
So for me, what worked out in the whole process was the more knowledge I received, the more aware I felt. And now I'm at a place where I don't like eating sweets.
Yeah.
And I'm so surprised seeing that version of myself. And the day I feel like I go open the fridge, make sure I have a piece, and the first piece I realize I'm not interested in the second bite
Mm,
anymore. So
mm,
in that way, I just realized for all the other things also, if you actually put yourself into a spot, see, understand, if you're actually curious about something, you dig further deep into it, see if it makes sense to you. It might A hair oil might make sense to me, but not to you. The shampoo might work for someone else, but not for the other person. So other person's experiences are not for you. It's for you to understand and create your opinion out of it. That's what I personally feel works for me.
yeah.
So yeah, the Gharelu Nuskas are there, still there, but I have my own formed opinion after having my experience with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that entirely, and I think we kind of also we give our opinion so freely, no? Like I was also going through this, but this worked for me, and that automatically, I mean, it's okay, we're human, we like connecting with something someone says, and we want it to work for us as well. But I don't think at the cost of not having, like you said, entire knowledge about it. And I have decided consciously not to do this for this particular reason, or I have decided to pick this for this particular reason. And like you correctly said, as teachers, which is I think what we were talking about on the phone as well, as teachers, it's you automatically go into this like framework, which I'm not sure who made, and but we kind of just go into it and we're like, okay, this is the parameters for being a teacher. So I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. I will not do this, but I will not talk about, I will only talk about what a teacher should
Should be
talk
doing
about.
it. Yeah.
And I've caught myself sometimes also, talking about, I'm constantly talking about something, but at the back of my head, that was a time where I was really questioning, am I equipped? Because I felt like there were times I was maybe being dishonest, not because I was lying about something that I'm telling somebody to do, but it's actually bad, but I'm telling somebody to do something which I may not be applying to myself. There was a phase that I went through that I was not being able to wake up in the mornings and practice because for other reasons I was extremely, extremely exhausted. But if I'm telling people, no, waking up in the morning to practice, between 4 and 6 a.m. is the best thing to do and there's no other time to practice, but I wasn't doing it myself. So sure, it's good, but if I'm practicing in the evening because that's what's working for me, why am I only telling people that this is the only time to wake up and practice? So I think we should, I mean, we're student, all of us in this generation are definitely students before we're teachers. We're really far from being yoga teachers, and even when we're teaching yoga, we're only teaching a very, very small part of yoga, which is okay. It doesn't make us bad teachers. It doesn't make us, not good enough. But I think we should accept and be honest about the fact that right now, I'm only teaching asana. And so therefore, I'm also not unnecessarily going to tell people that, asana is not all, there's much more. Sure, there's much more. I also don't know much more. If somebody talks to me about, and I'm sure you have a lot of people who say that I want to learn meditation. I have people who say that, I want to learn meditation, and I say that, look, I don't know because for me, I felt meditative underwater. That's my meditation. I haven't sat on a mat and I've sat before my practice and after my practice and kind of just felt what I felt before, and then I practiced and what I felt after, or what I feel when I breathe in different parts of my body. But an example I always use is when my mom is dancing. At that time, I've seen it in her. When she's dancing, she is not a mother, she is not a wife, she is Rachna who is dancing at that point. Nothing before, after matters at all. It's just her, the rhythm that she can hear, and maybe the sound of her ghungroos. And I think if that is not meditation, then what else is? So now, can I teach that in a class? But I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about dhyana and dharana, but I will just share with you this is what I feel. If you want to take this, I can talk to you about it.
Hmm.
For example, like it's I think there's just a lot of things that we should talk about because we're really students and we're also human. So, and a lot of things kind of go unsaid, which I think is also the point of this conversation. And I only say it, and I'm not pointing fingers at everybody. A lot of it comes from realizing myself that even when there were injuries that were happening with me, I was becoming progressively unhealthy while practicing yoga, but I didn't talk about it because I was like, how can I teach and tell my students at the end that, by the way, my health is in absolute shambles right now. But till I did start speaking about
Yeah,
it and saw that so many people resonate. So, I'd kind
true.
of put myself on a pedestal for absolutely no reason. And then brought myself down to that, yes, I did drive myself to falling sick because I practiced too much, not because of the practice itself, because I didn't practice for what the practice actually has to offer.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the lack of interaction amongst the whole community, I guess. I personally feel there is such untouched corners that is there in the community. I think community itself is very scattered, yoga teachers in particular, so which is where we don't discuss all these very often. But I think with time, it's getting better. Like how we initiated this conversation today, I see a lot of my friends getting comfortable with being around teachers, with keeping those ego aside, keeping that thing aside that, oh, we both are the same profession and everything. And people are actually talking. At least I feel personally blessed that I'm now slowly and steadily starting to surround myself with people of the similar mindset who are open to sharing without having any preconceived notions towards any particular thing. I also remember this time one student. So I am a morning bird. I like sleeping early. I like waking up early, and it works for me because I've loved doing this for the longest. I remember I've always loved being with the sun, and I remember a lot of students asking me, "It's like, how do we do that?" It's like you don't have to do that if your schedule is not at a place where you cannot wake up and you're just gonna not be finishing the amount of hours you need to sleep. It does not make sense. Your first question, your first approach should be, how should I sleep on time? Rather than how do I
yeah,
wake up on time? And then comes the practice. If you cannot settle the basics, you're jumping steps that you're not supposed to be taking initially right now. And when these norms were set, when all these Brahma Muhurat norms were set, the life was way different. People were working on sun's clock. There was no digital clock. There was no life after sun being down. So it was impossible for people to be awake after the sunset. So, which
correct.
is why it made sense. If you still go to a place which is so remote where post 6:30 you cannot step outside, you will automatically, unless you are into binge watching and stuff, of course that is another story altogether. But the lifestyle I'm talking about, if you are surrounded in a lifestyle which encourages you to fall under the same cycle that it was way back when all of these norms were written, it will help you. I have nothing against anything. I am a follower of it. I will say I am a follower of, I am a morning person. Late, I mean, the lockdown was a blessing for me because I could actually put it into use, follow it, get good amount of sleep, and change my life. But if you feel bad about not waking up on time, you're just doing nothing and still feeling bad. And if you're feeling bad, you're not doing good to yourself in the first place. So
Yeah.
might as well start feeling good about what life you have and be aware about what you don't want to continue doing, and how can you slow steps towards it, take small baby steps towards it rather than jumping to a conclusion like how can you wake up in the morning? Why are
Yeah.
you so so sleepy right after the sunset? Why? How can you do it? Before that, people should start understanding that if you wake up at, I'm not encouraging anyone to wake up at 10, FYI. But if you wake up at 10 and you're feeling bad that you are waking up at 10, just think of some other country, there would be 5:30 happening. You're waking up at 5:30 in some
That's
other
a good.
country.
Uh,
If you want to wake up at 5:30, there's 5:30 happening in some other country, but that is not a leeway for anyone. That is a way to just start settling your schedule, start getting better. But there's always a way around it. Don't have to be hard and fast everywhere. Like there are times you'll feel practicing at certain points. There's time where you feel practicing not at that particular point. Like I have been down with an injury with multiple disc bulge in my spine and cervical region and in lumbar region, and that has happened over the years with some other things that I've done, which I'm not in particular about, but of course it's an overlap of certain things. So I'm not supposed to do a hardcore practice that I was doing earlier, which was very difficult for me initially when I got to know about it, because I am a very I think I've not even told about this on a social platform that I was going through this injury. I'm talking about this the very first time right now. And
which is what it
I
which
was
is what
taken
it
back.
should be.
Yeah.
Which is what it should
Yeah,
be.
exactly. I mean, I'm not afraid and like hesitant towards sharing that I am taking a step back. But my only thing was, okay, I'm strong. I can keep this to myself, which is okay. But you can let people know that okay, you also have a setback, and you also have a place where you go back, and there's a reason why you're not practicing and how it makes me feel. When I got to know about the injury, I was like, oh, the first thing that came to me is, how will I do headstand again? That's the first question.
Imagine.
It's like, I'm not being considerate to myself. It's like, because headstand is my happy space. How you feel
Yeah.
happy in ocean, headstand is that for me. Because I remember how it made me feel. I remember how it feels to be there. So that was my first concern. It's like, oh, I've been progressing so much. How will I go about this now? But within a month span, I think the amount of knowledge I surrounded myself with, I realized practice is still going on. I can still practice. I can still meditate. I can still breathe. I can do everything else. I don't have to feel so miserable about something. And it shouldn't be a thought, what if a yoga teacher cannot do a headstand? It's so funny. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it does not matter. Um,
And that's not
I
that's
just
not
feel
what defines
that
you.
injury made me learn. Yeah, that does not define me, and it just made me realize that everything in your life comes for a reason to help you understand a little certain things. So
Correct.
now I know that they're not my setbacks. They're actually my they're pushing me over to another path that is actually going to be a much beautiful path that I might have not known if this was not the case.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
something I want to add to that is something that I have to keep reminding myself and did realize, and something that Bharat sir also did remind me, is that when we are teaching people, we're not everybody we're teaching, most people that we're teaching do not want to become yoga teachers, and they don't want yoga to be their, the to be everything. So sometimes we, give them all of these, do this, eat at this time, or we tell them that I do this, I wake up at this time, and automatically, of course, your student will feel pressured or feel that this is what I should do because my teacher is doing it, right? And it seems to be working for my teacher, so maybe it'll work
Correct.
for me.
Yeah.
But but we have to keep in context the rest of their life and have to actually keep reminding them also of the rest of their life that you have a different profession. I'm not going to judge you for not sleeping on time because you are also spending substantial amount of time in office, going to work. You have children,
Correct.
which I don't. You have a family, you have a husband, wife, whatever. You have other responsibilities. I have to keep that in mind before I'm passing on any knowledge to you as the right knowledge that, don't eat, eat at this time, eat at that time, don't eat this, don't eat that. Because your energy is also going yours and my students' energy is also going somewhere. My energy is going somewhere, but so is yours. So I have to
Correct.
keep all of that in mind before I, start giving advice or start sharing things about what I do. And it's also the manner in which I share it with my student and not making it seem
Absolutely.
like I'm what I'm doing is correct.
Obligation. Yeah,
And
correct.
also, yeah, and also, coming to the way life was earlier when, yoga was practiced, or even a lot of our teachers in Mysore, they are based in Mysore right now, but most of them have grown up in the outskirts of Mysore, where, their day was on their farmland. And like you said, they didn't need to be awake after a certain point in time. So obviously, once they've completed that amount of sleep, they will wake up early. You
Correct.
will only eat your food at a time that if you have electricity, you can see what you're eating, what you're cooking, things like that. And a very, very important thing is that your whole day also you are moving around. You
Absolutely.
are, whether it's you're making an effort to go and get water from the well, or you're even your mother at home who's cooking, or if you are helping out, everything. You don't have one button which just you put everything in the mixie and you press the button and your smoothie is there in a plate for you. Everything is you grind everything by hand. There is a physical effort that goes into everything. So then days that you're not practicing, you've still used your body. You've used, and that is what essentially also yoga asana came up as, is to keep you one healthy. And I don't think it came up to cure illnesses, which is the kind of
The
gray
current myth.
area that we're
Yeah.
in, that I have diabetes, I have tried everything, I've gone from this medicine to this medicine, gone to the gym, done this, done that, tried losing weight, and my last resort is now yoga. Can you please teach me some asanas to fix my diabetes? Yoga was to first prevent all of this in the first place,
Correct.
so that you have already eradicated toxins in your you have cleaned your body is healthy enough for later stages in your life to basically push the oncoming of arthritis or diabetes or high, low BP, any of that. It was not that I have BP and therefore yoga was discovered to cure it. So yoga is not a sure sort cure that you leave
Therapeutic.
everything else
Yes.
and then you put it on your teacher that, oh, but I'm not losing weight.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but it was everything together. And like I was talking to someone about it just today, that I feel such a stark difference between when I'm in Mysore in the Andamans and when I come back to Gurgaon, that we don't walk in our cities anymore. We basically just walk in our houses and then we get out of our gate and we get into our car. Then we sit in our car, get out of our car, go to our office and sit on our chair. Then go to the next table and eat food. So,
Yeah.
and then when we take out time to go for a walk, so the walk also seems like a chore that has to be done in the morning. So then there's days where you take a rest day from walking, which is like bizarre, but I mean, it's no one's fault. It's just where we are at now. But but the world before, you were walking all the time. You're barely sitting, and when you were sitting, you were sitting on the floor. You were eating on the floor. You were interacting with people sitting on the floor, sitting on a charpai where you had to keep your back erect on its own. So it was the the practice was happening all the time.
All
It was,
the time.
it was
It's a
you were not
lifestyle for
taking
a
your
reason. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think it's important to accept where we are also now. ठीक
True.
है ना, you can't सब दिल्ली छोड़ के नहीं जा सकते ना to go and walk wherever. So you accept that. But then as a student also and as a teacher, then you have to be very, very patient and
Correct.
understand that if 9 hours a day, 5 days a week is going with you sitting on a chair in different chairs, then 3 times a week of 90 minutes of yoga is not going to fix everything in 1 month. But the patience has to come from both ends.
True.
And the
Absolutely.
respect has to come from both ends. Rather than hating where we are at now, it's better you accept it And
Absolutely.
maybe that's why at that time, strength training and things like that didn't have to happen because they were happening. If you're pulling a balti out of a well, it's happening. You are using the same muscle,
Full
your
work,
pull
yeah,
muscles.
correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if it's there now, then enjoy it. And if it gives you happiness, enjoy it. But yeah, I think being patient is a really, really important, is a very, very
Correct.
important thing which needs to be like reminded both to people who are in the position of teaching and people who are in the position of learning, that you're not teaching your
Correct.
students to become yoga teachers.
Absolutely. I think we a lot of people have this concern with you have to know it all to be a teacher, and it's impossible. The pool of knowledge is immense, and what you can collect is only this much.
Exactly.
How much ever you try to collect, the water's going to slip out of your hand. I remember my first lecture of therapy when I enrolled myself into learning yoga therapy, which had been my thing for since I was a child. Like I remember my childhood dream was to become a doctor. And I took that dream for a very long time till I actually had to enroll myself into an institute where I switched to commerce all of a sudden for I don't know what reason, which I pat my back till day for. But I remember my first lecture of therapy. That's when my teacher said that yoga is not a medicine. Yoga cannot heal you. Yoga can help you. Heal you in the sense that it's not a fix for you. If you have come here to become a doctor, please go back because that's not
Yeah.
happening today. And that's not happening anytime soon because yoga is not for that. Yoga is a life which there are people who do a form of yoga which does not even require them to move their body, which is bhakti yoga, where there's just devotional aspect of it. There are people to a there's so many different aspects of this. This movement and physical aspect is one just aspect because it's so visible, it's so understandable for people to perceive it through the eyes that you can see what it makes you feel and do, and it takes you to a place. But everything that is happening behind, internal aspect, you cannot see it. You cannot palpate it and you cannot quantify the magnificent difference that it makes you feel. And which is where he explained it beautifully that nowadays people have considered yoga is like a pill where every teacher they meet is like आप मुझे मेरा diabetes है इसका कोई solution बताएंगे, but you don't know that every yoga teacher might not have the answer to that. They're not trained for that particularly, but right now
That's true.
it's like a stereotype that oh yoga teacher, oh आप मेरा belly fat कम कैसे करवा सकते हैं, आप मेरे घुटनों का दर्द कैसे दूर करा सकते हैं. But the problem is it's a pre aspect, and it also helps you. How therapy actually is helping people is they very clearly tell that you have your reports in hand, you're using science. You need science to actually help you in a particular journey. Yoga is actually helping you sustain through it. How can you deal with what you have and not go berserk in your head about it?
That's
Because
very important.
that's
Yeah.
where you take the problem to the extreme.
Yeah.
That's exactly where you make it go all worse. If a
Mm.
person is sick and you feel sick mentally also, there's no chance of recovery. You must have heard people saying in TV series drama that when a person is going to be operated, they say that the person who is being operated should have the will to recover. That's nothing related to science. It's just the sheer will of that person to recover. So all this is for people to understand that it gives you a way to sustain what you're going through. If you are in a state where you're actually dealing with something that you need to heal from, so it actually is going to help you. And a lot of problems are right here. That takes a lot of time for people to wrap their head around. And I remember my peers actually who are not into yoga, my friends, I remember one particular friend telling me this dialogue, ah, मेरे को yoga की जरूरत नहीं है. And I was like, okay, I'm not imposing anything on you. But the mentality, it's just the approach where yoga is considered as a pill these days is funny when I perceive it, when I actually hear people say about it. And I don't blame them actually. It's just the lack of knowledge. It's nothing that I can blame off to any of the other person having that particular opinion because it's not known to people. All people have been knowing is five poses that you can do to reduce your belly fat and
But
to get rid of
also,
yeah.
yeah. Also to
Yeah.
add to that, I think people come from a space where they also feel that doing yoga is only for, like you're saying, it's not a pill. And also there's a lot of people who say that I really want to learn from you, but I can't because I can't touch my toes. But
Yeah,
the point is that, you didn't go to school already knowing how to read and write, right? It was taught to you,
exactly.
and you're first taught shapes, and then you're taught the alphabets, and then how to create sentences, and then that there's punctuations that come, and before
Yeah.
you know it, you're writing letters and stories, and then you realize that I can write poetry as well, So you don't need to feel intim, but it's not people's fault because they just see the end result, that one photo that somebody has put up on Instagram, and feel that this is yoga, and this is what is. I have to enter class knowing how to do this already. Therefore, I don't even want to
Yeah.
come face to face with with this particular practice. And I don't think that that is how it is at all. That you don't need to be able to have your palms
You would,
flat on the
yeah.
floor to do yoga. And maybe even when you start, you might never even get there. But there'll be an entire process and a journey of you even attempting to get there. But on the way also there'll be so many other asanas that you learn. And you learn Vrikshasana also, and you'll to get to Uttanasana at some point. And the other thing that yoga, I think, also helps with, rather than actually, that one asana for the thyroid gland or that one asana to lose weight, there's a a very, very difficult thing is to actually spend a lot of time with yourself and for you actually to see how you react to situations which most of us don't want to deal with. And that is a very big part of yoga. And in that, you're not really, you could be doing asanas, you could just be sitting on your mat. I always, I always equate a new asana as a new situation that might come up in someone else's life who's maybe, in a corporate job, who, a very challenging meeting has been thrown upon them and they were not prepared for it. And how they react in that situation is also how that person would react when a new asana comes their way. And do they get frustrated that they can't do it? Do they get agitated that they can't do it that day itself? Or what do they feel when it comes their way and they're like, okay, it's being taught to me today. I don't have to do it like my
You
teacher
don't
is
have to be
doing it
perfect.
today.
Yeah.
And exactly, and your new asana is as uncomfortable as a situation thrown at you in office. And that shows your mental, because both of them are situations. Both of them are uncomfortable situations. In both, you can't breathe. Your breath is shallow in both. So, which is the other thing that I see in diving and in yoga. When you're new, you do not care about the beautiful fish around you. You cannot breathe. And it's the same thing when you're doing a
I
new
agree.
twisted posture where you're like, where will my breath go? There's no space. My chest is twisted. But how do you deal with that? Do you sit back and you're like, today I can't breathe, maybe next week I can. And that also teaches you so much about, okay, I have been diagnosed with this thing, or
Hmm.
I am injured. I've been diagnosed with this disorder, or I am injured today. And let me still get onto the mat and see how I'm reacting to it. Do I think it's the end of everything? Now that I have been diagnosed with diabetes, God knows where it's come from. Do I accept the practice that maybe there's no one asana to fix it, but maybe I can sit and just see that the fact that my brain is going all over the place, or it is a chaotic space and I'm not being able to sit silently, maybe that is also something that's adding to the fact that I've been driven to this problem. So
Hmm.
it's just a time for reflection, I think, a lot. The way you
Absolutely.
react to any practice. Do you want to quickly get out of it? Do you want to get out of it slowly? You want to just finish it off and then tell yourself, "Ki, at least I woke up and I did
Correct.
it." That says so much about your personality as a whole. And I
Hmm.
think that is a great medicine to have in some
Absolutely.
way.
Abs
Uh,
I, I I can absolutely agree to that because people have this notion that, oh, yoga is gonna make you feel all calm, all zen. But when you come to it, you realize that, okay, Some days, sometimes. But reality is yoga is correct is actually trying to show you a mirror if you're open to listening to
Exactly.
yourself. If you're open
Exactly.
to
100%.
I am hosting this series called as Mindful 30, where I'm actually uploading a video every day, and which is like a 15 minutes practice. But funnily, that whole 15 minutes is where I'm actually talking about every practices that is actually applicable outside of the boundaries of mat. And I was just editing before this particular thing that we're having, the chat we're having. I was just editing tomorrow's video, and tomorrow's title is Imperfect. It talks about how are you feeling about the imperfections you actually have, and how does it make you feel? Like, are you struggling in that posture, and you feel bad that you're not able to get the posture, or are you okay to just breathe and see how that struggle is actually making you feel? See how it makes you shape in your head, and how are you actually reacting to certain similar things off the mat.
Yeah.
And this is something that you come to the mat for. Like when you decided to join yoga, some people had, okay, extra reasons. Maybe they wanted to learn fancy postures. That's a side reason. But someone who has actually joined for peace, calm, etc., if that's what you were looking for, then you cannot run away from yourself in the process.
It'll
You
only
cannot run away
come when
from
you
the,
first
yeah,
see this. It'll come. It's
correct.
not like it's not going to come.
Exactly.
Oh, it'll come eventually.
Yes.
It'll also, there has to be some, and it's work, no? Like we say as we get older, also like relationships and work, everything is work. You have to put in that work. You can't just sit back and be like, why is it not happening the way I
Yeah.
want it to?
Yeah, you try to
And
balance. You try to balance. If you are not able to balance, it's not because your ankles are weak. It's because
yeah,
it's because the left and right side of your brain, how they're actually working
exactly.
through, to what speed actually they're going through. And if you are just neglecting, like just so high on neglecting that this is because of your ankles, then you're just trying to escape the reality that is actually going through you, which is difficult to understand at initial phase, but being having that openness initially that it's something beyond this. It's open to feel what you're feeling, and not every day you might end up leaving the room feeling calm. Not every day
Yeah.
you will feel zen. Some days you're going to feel what you are feeling, what a practice wanted to make you feel.
And I
So, which is
think this
something that's
thought, this
spoken less
simple
of.
thought is something that helps me very often feel less intimidated when sometimes I feel very intimidated that there is so much knowledge out there. There's so many scripts. There's so much, apart from asana, even asana, I probably know like, point,
Hmm.
1,001%. That is one thing. But at least that is something I practice every day as much as I can. But you still feel overwhelmed that look, I want to find somebody who can, teach me the Bhagavad Gita. I want to find somebody who can help me go through the Vedas and the Upanishads. And then am I doing pranayam the right way? So you feel intimidated, you feel overwhelmed that wow, there is so much and I only know this much. But this simple thought that we were talking about before, I think if we can just grasp that, that is also a huge essence of generally everything that is being spoken about and has been written about and also has been passed on over the years. And you don't really need to sit and really go through all the scriptures, have a teacher teach you, break that down for you, because this is also the essence of what is anyway being said, to reach a point where you can kind of just come face to face with your fluctuations and your patterns and
Just surrender.
and first see that
Yeah.
this is how I am, and this is okay. And and I've just started giving a lot of importance, so actually enjoying the idea of speaking about a lot of things, because it creates a community and it creates a lot of, oh, you're going through this, okay, me too. And that sense of belonging is what all of us as humans really seek, whether it's from strangers, whether it's from people at home, our partners. We look for connection, and we look for something we can resonate on, that there is that feeling of, and we look for it in other people also, because sometimes we kind of don't feel it in ourselves when we don't feel like we're connected to ourselves. And I went through that for a pretty long period of time, and I've spoken about it immensely. I make it a point to talk about it more and more now that I practiced a lot, and along with practicing a lot, I was not eating right, I was not sleeping right, to the point that I drove myself to stop getting my periods altogether. And and I ignored it for a bit, and because I thought that they'll come at some point, and didn't also want to kind of accept that 1 month has gone, 2 months have gone, 6 months have gone, and I was in denial because I knew in my gut the answer to it would be that rest, stop practicing, or eat more, or you don't need to be vegan right now, it's just not helping. But you kind of, and I didn't talk about it to anybody, and because you're in denial. But till last year, till yeah, year and a half ago, when I did start talking about it, there were so many people, yoga or non-yoga practitioners, who are like, yeah, me too, and it's so much of it is because of stress, and this term stress, which is
Absolutely.
spoken about all the time, is it's it carries so much meaning, but at the same time, we don't really know what it means. We don't know where it's coming from, what it's creating in our body, how do we get rid of it. Um, but there was just a sense of comfort I could see in other people and feel in myself that, okay, lots of us are in this
You're not
situation.
alone.
It is
Yeah.
very unfortunate. We don't want to be in it, but we are in it.
Mhm.
And what are the different things that are causing it? What is driving us to reach a point where our female bodies are not working the way they should? So, which is problematic. And so, but my biggest support, more than medication or the asanas or anything, has just been the lightness I feel when I can say it out and have people respond saying, yes, I've actually been going through this as well. And the amount I've heard it in Mysore is much more than I thought I would. Um, and it's so important to recognize that you do ask. I really enjoy doing advanced asanas and postures. It's a different kind of a thrill. But when your body doesn't work the way it should, which is like when your periods stop coming, your body is really like, okay, I've had enough. I can't, you really push me more, and you've like soaked up all the juice inside, and I'm tired, and I refuse to function anymore. And that is something which is like concerning. So it's a thing. Like you said, you got injured, and the first thing in your head was, I won't be able to do a headstand anymore.
Mm.
And you can say it now with a smile on your face, but it was
Absolutely.
a very real feeling, and which is why I didn't accept for months that I am not getting my period, because I knew that the first thing, whoever I would talk to, any kind of doctor, any kind, I was like, I don't want allopathy, even a homeopath, Ayurveda, anybody would say, how much are you physically taxing your body? And I knew the answer, and I didn't want to know the answer. I didn't want to hear it, so, and I can look back and be like, wow, that was insane. But it was a very, very real feeling that I am not going to be able to. I've worked so hard to be able to do handstands.
I
Imagine if
cannot
I
stop
rest.
it.
Imagine if I
Yeah.
rest and then I get onto the mat and I can't do it. Who am I? And you start associating yourself with you define yourself based on the difficult posture you can do, which
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
insane.
Which is insane. I mean,
Yeah.
like you're mentioning, I want to say that I've also come across so many friends of mine who have not got their periods for so long, and I'm talking about months and years. Like there are people who I know, and it's that attachment to the process sometimes, or also it could be not what you are aware of, but
Yeah.
surrendering and letting yourself out, being vulnerable about it, is the first step, I think, where you can actually start finding a path. But till the time you're in denial, how will you actually go there? Like, till the time you're not aware and you're like, okay, what will people perceive me as? Like, what will they look for me at? I remember, like, it's nothing related to practice. It's about how you're actually feeding it to you. Everything, nothing
Yeah.
in access is good. Nothing in access is going to do
100%.
good to you.
Yeah.
So nothing in or nothing in excess. There's always, if dry fruits are healthy for human body, that does not mean you keep hogging dry fruits all the day. If fruits are healthy, that does not mean that's the only thing you munch all the day. Then you're being a fool. Then it's just you being greedy for something which is good. It's like, oh, this is good for our body. Let me just keep hogging it. I'll become the healthiest person. And that's not how it's going to work. And that is something that I think I am glad that you're open discussing, and we should discuss it more often with everyone who's actually been going through that. But I think
I think that
I'm glad.
really needs
Hmm.
to be brought into just the last thought, that needs to be brought into the spotlight in general, that, there's this, again, yoga and science can't go hand in hand, because yeah, but really right now they need to, because a woman needs to understand the importance of certain hormones in her body, and she should educate herself about them. She needs to understand the importance of estrogen and progesterone in her body, and how if one is too much, one is less, how they're not, your body is not producing enough of it. Why is it not producing enough of it? A woman needs to know the importance of having fat in her body, and also how estrogen doesn't only make you get your period. Your estrogen decides how you feel. Your estrogen decides all the way down to your eyesight, the strength in your muscles, the strength in your bones. And estrogen is one, it's like the juice of your body. It is everywhere. So it is truly detrimental, which is where I was, that my body did had estrogen as much as somebody who is postmenopausal for a whole year. And if that is something that we are avoiding because we don't want to club yoga and science together, then that is very, very unfortunate, because it's so important to know. And the reason maybe it wasn't clubbed together before is because people didn't have period issues. But
Yeah,
also, I mean, there are studies that talk about during both the World War One and World War Two, when there were countries, that the ones that were really suffering, women at that time were not getting their period. And the reason for that is that there was so much stress externally, that the body was in a constant survival mode, as it should have been. And the body decides at that point that reproduction is
not
not really what is going
essential.
to be
Correct.
happening right now. So let's send all of the energy, all of the blood, everything to the arms and the legs, to the
Where it's
biceps,
needed.
triceps, and quadricep muscles, where it's needed to make this woman run, because she will need to run for her life at some point.
Absolutely.
But if you are creating that by doing yoga, and your body is being put in a situation where it's feeling under threat, and your body is sending all its blood to your arms and legs, because your practice is making you feel like you're in a fight or flight situation. Your practice, or anything, your practice, your work, you could be in a corporate space, you could be working too much, you could be anything. If any activity that you're doing is making your body feel like reproducing is not important, digesting is not important, because your blood needs to go to all of these parts, then you really need to know about that. And it is
Correct.
so important to be informed about all of these hormones, and more than that, as women, but also as men. Men and women need to know about how both of their bodies have certain hormones, certain ways of functioning, and that is something that I really want to understand better, and also be able to talk more and more about, because when I look back, sex education in school was trash. It didn't exist. And whatever did exist, we were put in separate rooms where girls and boys are taught things separately. How are we going to respect each other's bodies? How are we going to understand that our bodies work differently? And that comes down to even the practice of yoga. Everything can't be for everybody. It just can't. Or
Absolutely.
in certain times, it cannot be for everybody. So, and that will come purely from to be aware, and you need to inform yourself, and then you continue doing what you're doing. So it's like, we're back to what we spoke about in the beginning, that information is so important and awareness is so important. Because then when you
I
do something, you do it more responsibly, and you know why you're doing it. And when you know why you're doing it, it sits in your muscles and in every cell. Then every cell is doing it because it knows why it's doing this. Your
correct.
body is not half convinced and your mind is convinced. Then you're just, that's when you lose connection with yourself.
Yes. I mean, it is for people to understand that right now we are talking about in general in context. It's not just in particular about yoga because
Yeah,
when you might think you're not hardworking enough, but you might be working even more than we are working. But the only difference is you might be working in your head. You're mentally working more than physically. And my physical threshold of practicing on a mat could be 2 hours, but your physical threshold on practicing on a mat could be 20 minutes because the amount of mental work you have put into your day is comparatively more to the other person. So if a person can be on a mat for 30 minutes or 3 hours, it should not define the standard outlines that this much is how much is for you.
yeah,
You should
correct.
understand the difference that whatever hard work is not visible does not mean it's not a hard work. If you're sitting on a desk for all day, that does not mean that you're not working hard. You're working hard in a very different way, which is not visible to everyone, but it's happening on trillion million of speed into the electric current that's going through your nervous system into your body,
Completely.
and that is what you need to start respecting more. People need to start respecting. I remember a time when people used to say, "Oh, you're such a hardworking lady. You work so hard." I'm like, "You feel that way? I think you're hardworking because I can't do what you're doing. I can't be sitting. I cannot sit for an hour on that laptop and do what you just did right now." For me, the definition of hard work is not by the number of hours you're working out in a gym or working out in a field. It's just people need to understand if you have been working out for 10 years for 2 hours a day, that's your threshold. That is something that you have been comfortably doing. But if a X person comes and he's been working out for 5 hours, for 5 years only, you should not feel judged because you have 10 years of experience and you're only doing 2 hours in comparison of 5 years. Because he might have a different threshold, she might have a different threshold. And we're talking about in general as a sense. Me and Myra both here are not talking just about asana practice. We're talking about life in general, where you're being neglecting towards how much fight and flight stress you're putting into your system. It could be physically induced, it could be mentally induced. It's putting you into a place where you're feeling the way you're feeling right now. So if you're thinking that you're not working hard, just ask yourself, is it physical or you're just being
Yeah,
very, just physically trying to analyze, oh, he did 20 push-ups and I could do only one. That
yeah,
does not define a hard work.
that's true.
Yeah, this is,
That's true.
this is amazing. This is such an interesting topic, and I think there's so much more that we can dive deep into
Yeah,
this. But I think, yeah, I think if there's something that you want to wrap up with, there's something that you want to call out before we wrap this session, because I think I would want to take another one where we can discuss further
of
more deep
course.
into it, because we just initiated a bit of this conversation, and I want people to stay in loop with what we're actually speaking
Mm,
and not be bombarded with what we're just saying is going right on top of their head.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, we will be also very open to listening to if you have some inputs. You can drop a DM to both of us, and we would be open to discussing something in the similar context. We're all ears, and we would want a healthy community where all of us, be it teachers, practitioners, we're all practitioners before we're teachers. We're still practicing and we're learning every day. So yeah, Myra, anything that you would like to add?
I think the last thing which I brought up in the middle was that something that we spoke about is that there's just a lot of things which are unspoken these days.
Hmm.
And be it in yoga, be it in any field, we feel we're firstly our first judges, and then we also constantly feel that we'll be
Absolutely.
judged if we don't say the right thing
Mhm.
or are not, or are sharing something that is kind of diverging from what this persona of mine should be. But I would really like to say that I have a new and a great appreciation for the 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 strength that a community brings when things are spoken about. And it's so important to talk about those things
Absolutely.
because it doesn't make you any weaker. It only actually really makes you stronger. And it would start from your family and then extend to your friends and then extend to a larger community. And I think if as much as we can, and the effort only comes from us. I can sit quietly and, keep valuing. I mean, I don't have to spill everything all the time, but, certain things, and you really know it in your gut. You know the answers always. So, like for example, you making this effort. No one's told you to put this con have these conversations with people all the time, um, but it's so important too because there's so much that we find we can be on the same page about, and I'm sure even if there's one or two people who are like, wow, I'd been thinking this, but I didn't know how to say it out, but somebody else has said it out. It's just we really thrive in connection, and I believe that now more than ever, that the biggest form of recovery or healing for me has been that my only person to vent to is not a doctor. I have multiple people to speak to about and feel like there is belonging, which is also a form of union, like yoga is.
It's a beautiful
So
safe
yes,
space. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's nice for us to have a beautiful safe space where we can be vulnerable and not being too hard on ourselves. This is so
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much, Myra, for doing
Thank
this with
you.
me. I am so glad we actually did this, and it was a lovely conversation. I think we can keep going. There's no end to this conversation.
Correct.
But yeah, thank you for doing this with me, and it was super fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank
having me,
you.
and hope we continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
But I know you'll have also
Absolutely.
very interesting conversations with other people, which I'm
I'm
looking
looking forward to
forward
it.
to. Okay.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Have a great day.
Good night.